Yo, what up? It's ORRION Online. That's Orion Online. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and we're here for another round of Homeboy Talk. Let's talk that talk.
Yo, what's going on, people? Welcome back to Homeboy Talk. My name is Deon Donovan, writer and creator of the infamous Florida Man at Title Page Comics. I'm also on YouTube with Behind the Scene Podcast, and this is my homeboy.
What's going on, everybody? This is your homeboy, Daniel Stinette, a.k.a. 𝐀𝐔𝐃. You can catch me on 𝐀𝐔𝐃 Gaming on YouTube as well as Twitch. Like, follow, and subscribe. Let's talk that talk. All right, guys, what's going on? Today, we are going to talk about one of the most beloved video game franchises of all time and its new iteration coming out later this year. I'm talking about Resident Evil 8, or as it's being called, Resident Evil Village.
Ooh.
We finally got a lengthy trailer, some more information from Capcom earlier this week. Resident Evil 8 will be coming out, I believe, May 7th of this year. We know that it's going to be basically a continuation of Resident Evil 7, dealing with Ethan and Mia Winters, and that they're going to be in some creepy village with like werewolves and all this other crazy stuff going on and everything like that. But apparently I heard the biggest topic, pun intended, is the appearance of a Lady Dimitrescu.
I believe it's Dimitrescu. Lady D. What's called?
Lady D. What's called Lady D or Lady Double D if you've seen the pictures of her. Apparently, from what I've seen and from playing the demo, because Capcom put out an exclusive PS5 demo, which was fantastic, and really shows off what they're planning on doing with the next gen consoles. But it's apparently somebody took the time to actually try to measure how tall this woman is. And from what they're saying, she's about 8 feet tall, but it's an 8 foot tall, kind of pale skin because apparently she's a vampire. She's an 8 foot tall vampire woman with a very wide brimmed, kind of almost like sun hat, long white dress, huge breasts, pretty much, and just oozes like 1920s, 1930s sex appeal. And apparently the internet has gone wild over this character.
In a frenzy.
And in a frenzy. Like, I'm talking about like Bowsette type frenzy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just fan art everywhere. And, all I want in life is a vampire goth mommy and step on me and all this other craziness going on and whatnot. So you got that going on. And then also Capcom also announced, for the love of me, I don't understand why they did this, but there's going to be a side multiplayer mode called Reverse or something like that. Reverse. That is basically taking characters from the game in a like a 4-way free for all kind of, where you're just going around trying to kill each other in a kind of like team deathmatch type stuff.
Yeah.
And it looks trash.
Oh god.
But just from what we're seeing, everything like that, especially after playing the demo, the game looks fantastic. Graphically, it looks good. It's going to be scary. I'm just super hyped for it. Deon, what have you seen about the game so far that you liked?
Well, I saw the 2 trailers about it, and Lady D is very impressive. Just from first impressions of her, she's going to be a fan favorite. Probably going to see her in conventions coming to you 2024, 2023, whenever that happens. Yep. But I really enjoy the aspect of it kind of going to a supernatural feel. Again, it has a lot of Resident Evil 4 vibes. The village is very European, is very medieval, like a medieval goth, like European German castle. The village, it feels like you're in freaking Transylvania. You know what I'm saying? At certain points of the trailers. And I like that they combine Resident Evil 7 aspects with it. It seems like Resident Evil 7 meets Resident Evil 4 on a next-gen platform. Yeah. And that's exactly what you get with Resident Evil Village. I mean, they even got the giant, like, it's like 𝐏𝐃𝐃𝐃. You got vampires, you got werewolves, you got Chris in the trailer. But if you didn't say this was Resident Evil, you wouldn't assume so. You really wouldn't assume so without Chris being mentioned, and without, of course, Ethan being mentioned. If this was just a brand new IP, you'd be like, oh shit, this is something new. You know what I'm saying? So this is Resident Evil continuing its horror expansion. This is it really just delivering what it's always not what it's always been about, but it's delivering that horror content in gaming that not a lot of companies can touch. And I'm down for it. I'm down for it, man. This shit looks very impressive. The graphics look sick. The lighting, the mood, the atmosphere, the storytelling, continuation of Ethan from Resident Evil 7. I'll be honest with you guys. I couldn't even finish Resident Evil 7. That shit scared the fuck out of me, man. I couldn't finish that game.
I played maybe about halfway through the game
Yeah.
with PlayStation VR, and I had to stop playing it because it just got too intense.
That shit was too much for me, and I didn't even play the VR. Real talk, y'all. So I'm a casual Resident Evil fan. I mean, I read the books, I played the games. The older games were more so too much for me because those damn puzzles were always too much for me to fucking figure out. I mostly played 4 or 5. Those are the titles, and 𝐀𝐒 Veronica, and a couple of those other side titles. But as a casual Resident Evil fan, this looks like a must-buy. This shit almost makes me want to get a PS5 still. But overall, it's looking really good, man. It's looking very impressive. Capcom is kind of back, man. They're back on their grind with this shit. And I got no complaints. So far, so good. What you got, O?
Resident Evil 8, it looks good, or Village, whatever you guys want to call it, but RE8, you know, looks good. It's looking like it's coming off of the same engine as Resident Evil 7, you know. I can't tell. Was ray tracing added?
Okay, so
There was ray tracing was in there.
There were rumors. Ooh, rumors. There were rumors from this guy named Dusk Golem off of the Resetera forums and also on Twitter, who was causing a little bit of trouble last year before they formally announced the game, because he was going around saying some craziness like apparently the game was having trouble running at 60 frames on the PS5, but it was running just fine on Xbox, and a whole bunch of other craziness that just made no sense at all. But because, once again, Xbox fanboys are going to take what some people say as gospel, they went and ran with it and created this narrative in their head that apparently the game just runs like trash on PS5, and that they have no ray tracing and that a whole bunch of other stuff like that, what have you. From what I've seen in the demo, I want to say that they do have ray tracing, but I don't believe it's going to be to the level of, say, like Spider-Man Miles Morales or Demon Souls or any of the other PS5 or Series X exclusives that come out so far, which I don't think Series has any exclusives right yet, so far yet, except maybe Gears 5. So definitely looks good. Definitely looks graphically it looks good. But at the same time, you got to remember, it's still a cross-gen game.
Yeah.
It still has to run on PS4, PS4 Pro, Xbox One, Xbox One X.
That is true.
So because of that, this is going to be another one of those situations where they're not going to be able to fully take advantage of the next-gen hardware, because they have to make sure that the old gen is still supported.
Yeah.
So they have to kind of pull a reverse of Cyberpunk. They're going to have to make sure, specifically because this is supposed to be one of your flagship franchise games, you have to make sure that the old gen runs just as decently as the new gen. You don't have to worry about the new gen. New gen PS5 and Series X can chew these games up and spit them out, no problem. But can the PS4 and Xbox One do that? You know, when you're talking about software, you know, hardware that's been around for 7-8 years now. So will it get to that point? We'll have to find out when the game releases.
Because my questions about RE8 is because I couldn't tell if they're utilizing ray tracing and stuff like that. I didn't really dive deep, but the lighting work and all that stuff is great.
Oh yeah.
I see that they have actually added some old mechanics in there and stuff, you know. Then added some new mechanics, you know. So now you got a push mechanic, so you can push these the zombies and the goblins and the werewolves back. I know that people are touting Lady D in the game and stuff like that, but you know, people also had their fantasies about the 3 daughters in the game too, you know. And you know, they're like, oh man, I want to get hooked by her and stuff like that. So I'm sure your ass do. You know, so you could enjoy all that in the next gen console, so that's on PS5.
I can't wait for VR.
Yeah. My two questions. Yeah, I'm glad you guys brought that up because two questions is I want to know if this is going VR, and the second is are they going to utilize the adaptive triggers and the additional feedbacks off the controller?
I can guarantee you they're going to utilize the haptics and the adaptive triggers, just because like there's like especially with horror games. There's so much that you could do with horror games, especially now that we have something like the DualSense, where the haptic motors are based off of sound for vibration, which makes it a little bit more immersive. So, I mean, just picture it. Like, cause I already got a taste of it a little bit playing the demo with the 3D audio and playing with the everything. It's gonna be a very immersive game. Like, I'm talking about just walking through the village and hearing things and feeling things rumble and maybe trying to, you know, open a door or what's like that. You got to squeeze the trigger a little bit harder. Like all that stuff's gonna be added in it. So there's gonna be no problem with that. But just, you know, in terms of the game itself, it's gonna be interesting to see, because one of the biggest things that people are saying is the reason why it looks like the frame rate and stuff like that may possibly be an issue when they were showing early previews of the game on PS5. Because let's be real, the earlier previews that they were showing of the game when they first showed it, the frame rate was rough as hell, which I'm guessing kind of led credence to that report from this Dust Golem guy that the game was running badly on PlayStation hardware, even though we know now that's not true. But it makes sense because, well, look, if you have to make sure that the game runs on PS4 well, doesn't that lead credence to you have to make sure that the frame rate is good for playing on PlayStation VR, because PlayStation VR has to go through the PS4 side of the hardware. So, I mean, they haven't said anything about it yet, but it would not surprise me if Capcom closer towards release come out or sometime after or whatever, and they say, hey, look, we're also going to have a PlayStation VR mode for the game as well, and go ahead and go from there. I mean, in any case, if they do, then please step on me, Vampire Goth Mommy. Like, I want to see that close up in person.
To answer your question, yeah, and that Lady D moments are going to be the most viral segments on YouTube from that game in VR mode, for sure. No, I think it's guaranteed. I think it's almost guaranteed because it's horror. It's a horror game. The more immersed you are in it, in any way possible, the more scary it's going to be. I mean, it was already scary as fuck on the PS4 with 7. So you can only imagine on PS5 VR with all the extra features that the PS5 has to offer. It's going to scare the living hell out of you, man. People are going to get fucking heart attacks playing this shit, especially with the 5 graphics and the controller functionality with it and everything like that. It should go VR. Capcom would be stupid not to do it. It'd be I wouldn't say it'd be a cheap version bonus to do it, but it'd be very incentive for them to do it. And the thrill seekers out there who want to risk it all to experience this game, to get death by snoo with Lady D, they're gonna buy that shit and they're gonna play it. So.
Well, speaking of Lady D, let me ask you guys this, because companies are getting more aware now that people love, you know, having that one singular character to kind of rally around, you know, like that one character that people can make memes out of and fan art and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And what, you know, the most recent one being Bowsette, you know, after the whole, you know, putting the crown on, and, you know, different Nintendo characters and different people are turning into a peachified version of themselves. You know, the internet went wild over that. And now the internet's going wild over Lady D. So do you feel like Capcom made her knowing full well that this character could be one of like those viral characters that like takes off, or do you think they made the character, and because the internet is just so horny now all of the time, that they just took it and ran with it with a mind of their own?
I'm gonna go by theory, but there's something that you mentioned off topic
that this was actually taken from Japanese lore.
Yes, there's a very old. Well, it's not very old. It came out like in the early 2000s. But there's a Japanese urban legend called Hachishaku-sama. Excuse me, Hachishaku-sama, which translates to 8-foot tall woman, basically. Where the idea, which is funny enough, is an 8-foot tall yokai who wears a wide-brimmed sun hat with a long white dress that usually preys on children, just because they're easier to manipulate and eat because you're a demon. If you're an adult, and so to the child, she's very tall, she's very beautiful, has a very motherly figure, she's very curvy. To an adult, she looks like a demon, and she's gonna kill you. So it's obvious when you compare the image of the urban legend to Lady D. It's obvious. It's almost a 1-for-1. Okay, we know where you took that idea from for Lady D, but once again, I feel like because the internet is so horny that it's like this. Normally when you have female characters get, let's be real, sexualized or waifued. There's always gonna be like those creepy dudes that are like, oh yeah, sit on my face, and then you have women who are like, okay, this is disgusting. Like, you guys are pigs. This is trash. But from what I've seen on social media, this is something that everybody has embraced. Like, even the women who didn't embrace Bowsette. I've seen bisexual and lesbian women on social media. They were like, yo, like, step on me too. Like this character is just one of those characters that I've seen in a long time where like everybody has joined together to embrace the idea of like an 8-foot tall busty vampire woman that's just chasing you around and has claws like Wolverine is chasing you around trying to kill you and whatnot. And I'm like, I just feel like Capcom made that character knowing that it was gonna have a good reaction to it, and because apparently even on their Twitter. They put like a tweet that was like a speech bubble, and it said, "Tall lady." Come on now, man! Like you don't think Capcom didn't know that they were?
I'm gonna say this though. This is Japanese culture, So of course, knowingly they know how to make particular things a trend, So I'm saying, So to have an 8-foot tall, like mama like figure, literally, to be a center point of the game and stuff like that, I feel like I feel like they knew, but they don't know how big it was going to be. They were like, well, we're gonna put something like this in the game, and we know that this is gonna be the center point of the game. But when they went on Twitter after the announcement, stuff like that, Japanese people are like, oh, so this nigga didn't know, didn't know. Sugoi, America's like, So seeing that all like transpire, which is pretty interesting. But at the same time too, like I said, they added the 3 daughters in the shit too, because they also they take place in the Gothic nature. However, I gotta ask you guys this question, because it's got a little bit of a Castlevania feel, theme, motif with it. I'm seeing some elements taken from Devil May Cry too. I mean, it's obvious. There's some stuff that it's almost got the coincide theme going in there. My only question is and stuff like that is like, all right, so now you added goblin-looking zombies and shit like that, and you got werewolves and stuff like that. Does it feel like it's straying away from what Resident Evil was from the beginning, which more like was a zombie apocalypse type horror game, to now expanded nature of now you got werewolves and goblins and who knows what next might come out in this game? Like, do you feel like it's actually straying away from what Resident Evil what normally was?
I think it's just an evolution of the genre. I think when you do so many zombie survival games after 30, 40 of them, you switch it up sometimes. I think this with a little bit of Resident Evil 4, especially with 7. This might be the Ethan's, like, this character might be that branding of this is outside the zombie genre in terms of a Resident Evil. And I think for the most part, you get the best of both worlds because they remade 2, right? They remade 3. They're probably going to remake some more as well.
They're remaking 4.
They're remaking 4. You know, they remade 1 years ago. So you're not getting away from the zombie survival. It's still there. They're still making those games, but every once in a blue moon, well, just recently, they're just starting to stray into the typical horror aspects. And it's like, well, Resident Evil is known to be the best horror game like of all time. It's in there. It's top 3, top for most people. So I think it's a natural progression to try something new instead of just going with zombie survival. Instead of going for the over-the-top action movie tropes that 5 and 6 got into. They scaled it back. They went back and did the remakes of 2 and 3 to get you back in that zombie survival, low ammo, low health kind of feel. And now with 7 and 8, they're going into almost like a Silent Hill without as much. You're at the, I wouldn't say you're not at the deep end of the pool, like if you're going in the pool, the shallow side is the zombie survival, and then the deep side is Silent Hill. You're in the middle. You're waist deep. And I think that's a nice, comfortable ground for Resident Evil and Capcom to kind of mix it up with in terms of progressing the story, in terms of progressing the Resident Evil franchise. Because, I mean, if you can accept a sci-fi story of zombies and whatnot, I mean, your suspension of disbelief is already kind of there. You can delve into more of the supernatural. You can delve into ghosts. You can delve into goblins. You can delve into vampires and werewolves and shit like that. As long as the gameplay is top notch and the experience is good, people are like, oh, yeah, sure, I'm down for it. And if you don't like it, you just wait for the next version of the zombie survival game that they'll release.
Well, I mean, it's not like we haven't seen Resident Evil games in the past that have kind of delved away from your tropey, stereotypical zombie game. I mean, if you look at, what was it? I mean, you had Resident Evil 3. You had Nemesis, which was like some kind of, you know, it was a Mr. X that had gotten boosted with some other stuff, and all right, now he's Nemesis. You had Resident Evil 4. Okay, well, Resident Evil 4, the people were infected with some kind, you know, with the Las Plagas, you know, some kind of parasite, and not only were you fighting, you know, villagers infected with this parasite, you also had 𝐏𝐻𝐃𝐈𝐎. You had a giant Shrek-looking dude running around, you know, troll-looking mountain trolls. You had you had the giant fish in the lake that you had to face. You had, you know, the regenerators, you know, like, you know, stuff like that. Yeah. Then, you know, going into like Resident Evil 6, you had a dude who could turn into a T-Rex. You know what I mean? Like it's almost at this point that, with as crazy as Resident Evil, you had Wesker. Like, as crazy as this series has gotten, is it really beyond belief to believe that they're gonna finally fight off werewolves and vampires and stuff at that point? Like, not really. You know what I mean? Like, so, I mean, Resident Evil Revelations, you were on a cruise ship fighting mutated fish. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I feel like, you know, to go along with Deon saying, it's like, it's almost an evolution of where the series needs to be. And if they're finally getting to a point where we're now fighting off vampires and werewolves in a European setting, and that's where they want to go, then hey, I'm all for it, man. I'm all for it. As long as the gameplay is good, as long as the story's good, as long as I'm genuinely scared, then, you know, that's gonna be my biggest concern.
Yeah. How many stories can you have? The Umbrella Academy released a new virus strand of the T virus.
Well, you can only do that so many times.
In Las Vegas, the Umbrella company released a new strand of the T virus in South Africa. You know, like, it's been done there, done that, man. Like the family from the beginning to the end, like, all that lore has been explored, all of it. So to make it do it again and again, it's like, yo, I'm gonna umbrella it out. Even Rihanna be like, I'm sick of this shit, yo. Yeah. Like, umbrella it out with this shit. So progress, man. It's progress.
Yeah, I think. I can see this progress. I mean, it won't be too long till we see RE9 and motherfucking alien zombies come in and shit.
See, but at that point, if the next Resident Evil, and that's, I guess in general, that's what I'm kind of waiting for, because since we're still at the very beginning of this current gen, of next gen, there's going to be a lot of games within like the next year to 2 to almost 3 years that are still going to be cross-gen with old games. I'm gonna be waiting for that first game that takes just full advantage of just next-gen hardware and PC and is not constrained by PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. You know, because I feel like if Capcom wanted to go that direction, they could have, but considering how hard it is to get a Series X and a PS5 right now, they would be doing themselves a disservice to not still have a PS4 and Xbox One version. So, you know, that's going to be the biggest thing moving forward, you know, for all of Capcom's franchises. You know, when are you guys going to finally move over to, you know, just all next-gen stuff like that? But, I mean, just from what I've seen of the game and played it demo-wise and everything else like that, like, I'm super excited. I can't wait to stream it when I get out. I'm definitely going to be streaming that. Not a plug at all. You can catch me out at Conan Bro Gaming.
Plug away.
But when I finally do decide to go ahead and when that game comes out, I'm gonna just binge it and just, you know, go through it so I can see some more Lady D.
I'm definitely gonna wait for VR mode. I'm gonna wanna fuck with it in VR and stuff. And I got to see what Sony is gonna be doing if they are gonna go VR 2. It feels like, I mean, it's a small niche market, but I feel like Sony is not going to sit here and abandon that small niche market and not make it VR too. But
I hope not. I spent like $300.
Right?
Especially if you can't even go outside anymore. Shit.
Yeah. So I mean, I've already
They're touching something in VR.
I mean, shit, man. You might have the dual sense controller, and then you got the little move controller and shit like that. You know what you may have to do with Lady D with the move controller and shit.
Someone's gonna mod
They
it.
got the little ball top with the move controller. So.
Okay, all right. You know what? We're gonna end it there.
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
All right, that's the end of our podcast. Like and comment, dislike if you ain't feeling this content. Download discussion from the SoundCloud. Big shout out to you for being a part of the crowd. Follow us on every popular social media on the platform in the description below.
Thanks y'all for lending your ears for another episode. Subscribe.